Okay, guys, I think I'll start. Thank you for your time and this show and tell opportunity. Today I'm going to talk about Firebase, what it is for people who are not aware, and also something a project I started, which is called the ui5-firebase-model. Which is a way to integrate this Firebase thingy into UI5 applications and all the awesomeness that can bring to our UI5 applications. I will then move on into some demo where I'll convert a standard demo app, UI5 app, to use the Firebase model, and so hopefully it will all work if all the demo gods are with me today. So I'll start with Firebase. What is Firebase? So Firebase is a lot of things. So if you Google for Firebase, you will see that it's a tool to simplify development of web and mobile applications. So if you do a mobile application, for example, there are problems which you'll encounter over and over again, like where do I store my users' data? I need a server to host some static files. How do I deal with authentication of those users, and so on? So Firebase is now belongs to Google. They bought them, but it started as an independent company offering solutions to all these problems. Okay, so if you go to Firebase, you have all these features: crash reporting, authentication, storage, and so on. I will only talk about the real-time database feature of Firebase. Specifically, what is this real-time database? So a database, as you know, is a system that stores data and allows you to read it later. Okay, very simple. The database, the Firebase database, is a bit different than a typical relational database, in a sense that it is non-relational, relational for start. So it's an object store. It stores objects, and the objects are not linked, or the database doesn't force links between those objects like a relational database does. But it also has this real-time feature, which is really cool and quite possibly the best feature of Firebase database, which is this ability where when one client writes some data into the database, all the other clients that are connected in using the same database get an automatic push notification saying this data was changed in the database. So what this allows is the creation of real-time applications where the data is kept in sync through all the clients that are using. So an example is an example of this functionality is Slack. You don't need to refresh Slack to keep getting messages, nor does Slack is constantly asking the server, is there a new message? Is there a new message? It doesn't work that way. It works the opposite way. The server notifies all the clients when there are messages. So Firebase database gives you this feature, okay? And also, it gives you a very simple API to use in both Android, in Android, iOS, and web. So it becomes really easy to use this in your web applications or mobile applications. It's even more ridiculous because there is a free tier, so it's the arguments for not using Firebase are very slim. Obviously, it has some limitations. So its querying capabilities are very limited, for example. But it is still very good for many cases. Okay, So I'll just give a brief overview. So how can you use Firebase in a standard JavaScript application, not UI5 yet? So first of all, you obviously need to load the Firebase runtime via script tag. It loads some JavaScript into your browser, and then once you do that, you get a global Firebase object, and to interact with the database itself, you just call .database, this .database function, which will give you a handler to the database. Now, with the handler for the database, you can do you can call this ref function where you pass a path, and what this will give you is an object which represents a specific data point in the database. Okay, so you can think of it as, I want a reference to my users set, or I want a reference to the user with ID 1234, and so on. So you use this .ref to always interact with some data in that database. And with the ref, you can then do a set where you pass an object where you are writing to it, or you can set up event listeners as you with the on or once methods, where you are essentially saying to Firebase something like, hey, when someone creates a new user, please let me know. Please call this function. Okay, so we have an example here where they set up a ref to the star count of a specific post. Okay, so they have a thing called post, a specific post ID and the star count, and they say, when the value change, please call this function. Okay, so just by doing this, whenever someone increments or decrements the star count in the same node, all the other clients that call this will get notified, and this function will get called by the Firebase library or runtime. Okay, so this is cool. This is very easy to use, but I decided to create something that would make it even easier to use for UI5 applications, and I've created a thing called ui5-firebase ui5-firebase-model. Okay, and so which is in GitHub and was published on NPM for easier installation. To be fair, I wasn't the first person to have this idea, as someone is saying, DJ is saying on the chat. But I believe there is no public project to get this working. But then potentially, I believe people have done this integration privately, or they just built a prototype but never got it further. So what I would like to do as this project is really get it to a stage where it can be used in production applications, which isn't there yet. Okay, so with this you get a model. I'll assume everyone listen to this knows what the UI5 model is. It's just a way to sorry, I was reading. So a model is just what you use to store data in a UI5 application. So with this ui5-firebase model, you essentially hide all the complexity of dealing with Firebase itself, and instead you deal with this model, and you have an interface that is very similar to the JSON model in the UI5. Yeah, this is Linux Mint running on a VirtualBox on Windows and recording, and obviously the computer is on fire. but yeah. So okay, so how do we use this Firebase model? I told you technically it's just an extension of the JSON model, so which means you interact with it. So say you have a model. If this is your model, you do new Firebase model, something like that. And now with the model, like any other model in UI5, you can do set property. You can do a get property, okay, and you can do a bind property, which the bind property happens behind the scenes when you just bind something in the view. So the interface is the same as the JSON model. There is a new method there, which is, I believe, append item, because this deals with concurrency when multiple people append some object into some set, but I won't cover this now. I'll just keep it simple. Okay, so let's move on to some demo. The demo I'll be showing is the manage SAP UI5 demo apps. Okay, demo apps. Do I have this while this loads? So there is a manage products open demo app. Yeah. So this application is just essentially a work list. Okay. It has a list of products. Each product has a name, a unit, and some price, and some filters. Okay. So I've downloaded the demo app. I've put it on a Git repo, which I'll share later, and I already have it on my laptop. What's happening? So let me see if I can actually type. Okay, so I should be able to go to localhost 8000 web app test. Okay, so the application is running locally. It's still the standard code. Okay, so the data here is coming. It is the Northwind OData service, but it's being mocked, so it's not actually connected. Okay, so what I want to do in this demo is replace this table with data coming from Firebase database. And the first thing I need to do for that is create an actual Firebase database. How do you do that? It's really simple. You go into console.firebase.google.com. You create what they call a project, which encapsulates all the offerings, okay, of Firebase, including the database. Adding a project is trivial. Yeah, this is demo DB, okay. United Kingdom, for example, create a project. Okay, so you get on the left, you get all the options. Some people are pleased to know that Firebase is itself integrated with Cloud Functions, so you can have coding for events, like when I create an object in Firebase, I actually want to send an email, for example, to someone. Okay, but before we do that, how do you put this on your application? You have these three buttons: add Firebase to your web app. You come here, you get a bit of code. So the script tag, a configuration object with a bunch of tokens, which essentially identify the database you're using, and some initialization code. Because we're using the Firebase model, we only need this config. Okay, so let me go into yeah. So the installation of the Firebase model can be done through multiple ways. The easiest way is through npm install, but you can also go to GitHub and clone it or download it directly. So I'm going to do that first on the application. Okay, So because this is not, yeah, I'm gonna do npm init. No, not init, sorry. I already have a package. If you didn't have a package.json, you'd have to go npm init and create it. You need to do npm install bower. Technically, I don't need bower, okay? But when I published the package in npm, the dependencies were a bit off. I had too many dependencies. One of them was bower. So in the next revision, I hope you won't need bower. But the important bit is npm install save ui5-firebase-model. Okay, so this will pull the code for the Firebase model and then run the bower install. That's why I installed bower first, otherwise this would fail. Okay, but again, technically this isn't needed. This bower step should take a few seconds to go. Okay, then. So what happened now is, if I do, basically, if I look at the node modules, I got this folder which contains the code for the Firebase model. Okay. Now we don't want this on the node modules. We want it inside the web app. Okay. Because it should be served. So what I'm going to do is manually copy the code from the node modules ui5-firebase model into some folder inside the web app. Okay, this step can be automated, and in the end I'll show you a sample application, another sample application which is on GitHub, where this step is automated. But the first thing I'm going to do is then I'll just show you the web app folder. Okay. Actually, I should have started from scratch because, yeah, I tried this a while back. Basically, I'll do it again. I'll delete that third-party folder. Okay, I'll delete it. I'll recreate it as if I was doing it from scratch. Third party. This is where we're going to include the Firebase model. And now I'm going to copy. Actually, before I copy, let me show you what we actually got. So if I go into the project, show and tell, node module, Firebase model, in this resources, this is what we want to copy, because this is the this contains the code for the Firebase model. Okay, so I'm going to copy here. I'm going to copy this OpenUI5 folder into web app third party. Okay, again, this step can be automated, but I'm doing it manually just so you understand what's going on. Okay, so now the Firebase model is installed, which means we can now go and change the code. Okay, so if I go to the web app component, so this is a standard UI5 application. We have a component, some models are instantiated there. Okay, what I'm going to do is on this init function we see a bunch of models being instantiated, so I'm just gonna, this has a good structure, I'll just follow the same structure, set the Firebase model, this will be called Firebase, and this will be called create Firebase model. Okay, which is on models. Save this, go into models, create a function, don't mind this, create this function. Okay, create Firebase model, and the code we want here I have in the where do I have it? Just a second. Show notes. yeah, it's something like this. Okay, so I'll explain the code. I won't type it manually just to save some time. Basically, what's happening here is we need to instantiate a Firebase model, like I said before, which isn't yet loaded. Once we have the model, we need to authenticate. I'll go into the authentication later. And when we instantiate the Firebase model, we pass the data, which is null at this stage, and we pass the configuration object. Okay. By instantiating this model, so the model itself will take care of loading Firebase, take care of initializing it, and so on. Okay. So to get Firebase here, we need to inject it here, and we need to load it. Again, the path, the current path for this is this one. So this corresponds to the structure I have in third party. So third party, OpenUI5 community model, blah blah blah, Firebase model. Okay, so I load it here, I inject it, and so on. Okay, and I think we're good here. I'm not, yeah, indentation is a bit off, but I have 5 minutes, so let's see. Another thing we need to do is tell it to where to load for this. So you could do this on the manifest. I'll do it on the index, just to keep it simple. So go into the index. I'll need to go into here. Say I have this bit basically. Okay, so what I'm saying is anything from OpenUI5 community model Firebase loaded from this folder. Okay, so I'm gonna save, reload the local web app, and also show you something. So on the network, disable cache, reload it. Let's see if it works. It should display the same thing. Okay, it does, but if I go into the network and type Firebase, the Firebase model was loaded, model, the property bindings, and so on, and also a WebSocket was instantiated connecting to the Firebase. Okay, automatically. Now we need to change a setting before we write anything, so we need to go back to the Firebase console. Firebase console, where are you? Yeah, I'll go back. I think we're using this database. I created this one, but the config I copied is this one. So I'll go here, and essentially what I need to do is to tell the database to allow connections for unauthenticated users. Okay, so if you go into the authentication, sign-in methods, a Firebase database, the users can be authenticated through multiple ways: GitHub, Twitter, and so on. One of the ways is anonymous. Everyone is anonymous by default. So we need to allow an anonymous login, because that's what we're using in this demo, and that's how we are logging in on the component. So if I go back to the the model, you see here that I instantiate the model, and then what I do is Firebase out sign in anonymously. Okay, so I want to sign in anonymously. Anyone can do it. By default, that person can't read or write to the database, but I just changed that setting, allowing anonymous logins. Okay. Again, no changes. So now we can change the binding of this table. into the Firebase model. So I'll go into the view work list. This is the view. It's a view with a table items. So by default it's pointing to products of the default model. I'll change it so that it points to the products and the Firebase. I'll also do the same change on the columns. So under items, cells. So for example, the product name will be Firebase product name. The object number will be this. Same here, and same here. Okay. So if I now refresh the browser, this will either dump or show me an empty table. Let's see what happens. Okay, didn't dump. Not what I expected. Okay. I know why. I think the data is coming from the Firebase already. Can I drop the data? Okay. So yeah, because I didn't use a new database, I think I already have the data coming from the Firebase. Let's see. If that is true, I can split the screen. So let me split the screen. So the console is itself. So if this data is coming from the Firebase database, I should be able to change the data here and have it reflect here. Okay, so let's see if this is true. So Mishu, where is Mishu Koviniku? So I'll change this name, I'll delete the Kobe, and it did update. Okay, so at this point I know that the data is coming from the Firebase database, and it is synced automatically. Okay, how did I get the data into this database in the first place? Really easy. I just went into import JSON and essentially selected the data that's under local service mock data, just pointed to this products JSON. I just had to wrap it in an outer object because it's an array, but that's how I got the data there. I won't do it because I'm already late, but you see that at the stage when the data is changed in the database, this console is itself a Firebase client, let's say. It reflects back to the data in the model in this application. And in fact, this works if I open a new browser, which I'll pull here, for the same application. Like I'm simulating two people in the same application looking at the same data. The data is synced. So for example, if I change one of these to an input field and change it, it will sync back to the other one. So let's do that. I will just go into, for example, one of these. Which one? Units on order. Yeah, so for example, I can change this to an input. This should be value. Forget the pieces. Yeah, let's try this. Refresh this. Refresh the other one. Okay, so it changed to an input, which is what I want. Refresh the other one. Okay. Same thing. And now if I change this Carnarvon Tigers to 200 and press enter, it immediately changed there. Okay, so if you look at this 40, if I do the same over here and change it to 400, press enter, it changes. So how is this working? The 400, the control sends to the model, the Firebase model. The model sends to the Firebase server. The server replicates the change to all the other clients. Okay, so as I said, this is the end of the demo. So I'm already late, but in terms of, and I wanted to show some, sorry, let's see the questions, if there is any questions. Ooh, okay. So yeah, so next steps for this, I'd love to see if people want to contribute. There are bugs. I know there are bugs at this stage. I won't go into them, but yeah, if anyone has questions, just let me know. If not, just use this on your apps. Just break it, and yeah, I think it's a good way to have either real-time sync in UI5 apps, or just use it as the actual default model of a UI5 and use it as a easy read-write backend for any UI5. So there's a question: how far away from production ready would you say the model implementation is? So at this stage, I have absolutely no tests, automated tests for this, which means it doesn't give me any confidence it's working. Working properly in every scenario, let's say. So that's the first thing I want to do, is write automated tests for this. But if I had to estimate, I don't know, maybe a full week of work, which with the time I'm dedicating to this will take, I don't know, maybe a month or so, if I am dedicated enough. Any more questions on the chat? Yes, I agree. So someone is saying it's a great backend system for proof of concepts. Yes, that was actually my main motivation here, was creating a read-write model for a UI5 database is actually very hard. It's a lot of work. I mean, creating an OData service in SAP or in Apache, what's the name? I can't remember. It's a lot of work, and using JSON models and mock data you can't write to them. So using this, you get a very easy to use read-write backend. Yeah. Olingo, thank you. That's the name. There is a link to the repo. Yes, I'll share. So there are at this stage 2 sample applications, UI5, using this UI5 model. So one of them, where is the main app? So one of them is, they're all in GitHub. Yeah, one of them is here, ui5-firebase-model samples, and the README has all the steps that I kind of did hastily, but it tells you how you use it and so on. Okay? So if there are no more questions, because I'm already 6 minutes behind, I'll close it. Close this. Someone's typing. Okay. Thank you for your time. And so the model already supports scalar and list data types. Yes, so it supports aggregations, as in when someone adds an item to an aggregation, it syncs back an aggregation, and when someone changes a simple property, it also syncs back. Okay, thank you all. I'll close this and we can talk offline. Thank you.